Dear friends, as we sit for meditation, I invite everybody to try to get the best use of these few precious minutes that we have to meditate together by letting go of any kind of worries or thinking or agitation that might have come up during the day. Letting go of planning and cogitating about the future. Just making the determination to have a tranquil mind that can settle in to just being here in the present moment, with the mind resting on the object of meditation in a way that's alert without being tense, and relaxed without being drowsy. Just taking an interest in our meditation object and what arises for us during this time of sitting together in practice. So I welcome all of you to come to an upright and balanced meditation posture. Being aware of the physical body, resting on your meditation seat within the space of the room, which is your meditation room at this moment. Aware of this body. Doing a scan, just acknowledging the top of the head, the face, the shoulders, the belly, the arms and the hands, the legs, the knees and the feet. Just bringing to awareness, having this living body, and opening awareness to the 5 physical senses. What is coming from hearing, seeing, tasting, smelling, and touching. Without getting caught up or thinking about it too much. Anything coming in through the senses, just be aware of that. And if any thoughts come along, treat them the same way, through the sense gate of the mind. They come along. Acknowledge it without getting caught up, without getting caught up in reacting. Just being still and aware of what's arising. keeping the entire body and all of the senses in awareness, whatever arises, moment by moment, just watching. And after a while, if the rise and fall of breath is clear, one can just settle on the breath and let go of everything else. If the mind is well settled on the breath, letting the rise and fall of breath expand and fill the entirety of awareness. So the mind is completely absorbed into the rise and fall of breath. But if other sense impressions come into the mind, just notice them briefly. Notice the arising and finishing of those other sensations. And then if the mind is happy to return and settle on the breath. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Dear friends, yesterday was a full moon day, which means that we had some a good Dhamma discussion here within our community. And one of the points that come up that sort of inspires what I want to speak with you about. We were looking at 44 Dhammas that one should remember and practice and do a kind of a self-review on a daily basis to see whether we've really been able to uphold a good standard of on 44 points of the Dhamma. So I was thinking, since this is a short talk, and some of us are householders with busy jobs, I found a related sutta that just has 6 dhammas to remember. This is the Seka Sutta. It's number 53 in the Middle Length Discourses. Seka is a trainee. So this is a training sutta. The Buddha had a backache, and he invited Venerable Ananda to give this teaching. And Ananda he's not the Buddha. So the teaching he gave is quite wonderfully simple and basic. And I felt that it's actually really good on a regular basis to consider the basic elements of our practice. Are we really maintaining them, or have we started to cut corners somewhere? And if there's something that we're either cutting corners or we never really got established in a good way in the first place, then we should undertake to develop whatever seems weak. If we've got a weak point in our practice, try to focus on that for a couple of weeks or a month and see if we can bring that up so that we've got a balanced, our own personal training program, that we're able to sustain it in a balanced way so that then our evolution of our spiritual path has a chance to flourish. There are 6 dhammas here, but one of them has 7 sub-points within it. So it adds up to a 12-step program. And I know that that's not going to be too much to remember and practice with. So as I go through these, I want you to consider, am I satisfied with how I'm holding these points? The first is to be accomplished in ethics. So to know clearly what ethical precepts you believe in, that you have made a decision to undertake and uphold. And are you upholding those ethics? Or are you finding some things difficult to uphold? Or finding cutting corners, or finding some lack of clarity about what precepts are significant that you've determined to uphold. So that's the first one. And then the second one is guarding the sense doors. During this guided meditation at the very beginning, I was trying to set up an actual idea of guarding the sense doors so that, when the meditation is, when the mind is not very calm or settled, sometimes you have to choose a narrow object of meditation like the breath, and in a way, sort of like force the mind to just stay on that and make a decision to ignore everything else. And then at other times, we practice what they call open field of awareness, or mind in the middle, where anything that's arising in the present moment can be experienced mindfully, seen very clearly and known, but because the mind doesn't pick it up and begin to proliferate about like and dislike, or any kind of a reaction to the things that are coming up through the 5 physical senses and through the mental sense gate, that the phenomena just arise. You can see the arising, the passing away, and the basic quality of being centered doesn't get disturbed. So not getting, guarding the sense doors is described as seeing a sight with the eyes or experiencing something through any of the gates of the senses. One doesn't get caught up in the features and details, so that the qualities of desire and aversion do not become overwhelming. This is a simple Dhamma, but it's so clear and so useful. And you can tell on those days that you have trouble with meditation, it's because desire and aversion did become overwhelming. The mind was regularly getting caught up in reactivity. And here's the guidance to see if it's possible to it's like putting a budget on what's coming in through the sense gates. You just note it, you notice it, you see it clearly, and then allow that moment to go by. So that's the second point. You can ask if you're able to do that regularly during your meditation time and throughout the day. Are you able to guard the sense doors? The third point in Bhante Ananda's training program is eating, knowing the measure of food, eating in moderation. That means not eating for pleasure, beauty, or fattening, or fun, not playing with your food, but really just thinking, let this food keep my body healthy so that I'm able to continue practicing for one more day. Eating the kind of food that supports being able to practice. Eating the amount of food that supports being able to practice. There's a further contemplation about food. If one is struggling with desire for food, having the mind obsessed about food, or just seeing how the inner cravings, the natural human craving that we have to live, that we want to live, and then and we want to have pleasant feelings. And so this happens to us because we only eat once a day, or only eat in the morning before noon, and then fasting in the afternoon. And so if you get not enough food, you might be hungry later on. So a person who's got a mind like that, they've got some anxiety, either anxiety about life or anxiety about something else, anxiety about painful feelings later, anxiety about discomfort. And so they or some other kind of anxiety, and they're eating food in order to stuff back their anxiety. And so that is what one should not do. So that's the second point. There's a lot of the things that people become addicted to. It's possible to give them up completely and be far away from temptation. So if you have a weakness for gambling or something, well, just don't go to the casino or something, and then you could avoid gambling. But we have to eat, and so we have to face that every day. And then the fourth point on this training program is being dedicated to wakefulness. So the guidance is to practice walking and sitting meditation during the day and in the evening. And then in the middle of the night, one should lie down in the lion's posture on the right side, placing one foot on top of the other, being mindful and aware and focused on the time of getting up. And then one should sleep during that middle portion of the night. Then in the last part of the night, one would awaken mindfully because of having made that determination, and continue with the sitting and walking practice. We know that if a person has got a very active life, if they have to be on their feet doing physical work, if they have to be running around or lifting heavy objects or doing strong physical work, it could be that 4 hours of sleep per night is not enough and they need more sleep than that. But having an idea of not just sleeping according to how you feel like it, but actually having a plan for sleeping and trying to lie down sort of with an intention about how much sleep to have on a given day. Trying to get the same kind of sleep every day. Not saying if you have a quiet day and you're able to get some rest, have a very restful day, then at the nighttime comes and you don't feel very sleepy, and so then you may sit up reading a book or sit up practicing meditation through the night and get very little sleep because you didn't feel sleepy, so you didn't sleep, and then the next day you're tired and it's kind of a roller coaster. But trying to be consistent, but not to sleep too much, and to try to go to sleep with this determination for mindfulness. So that's the fourth point. And then the fifth point on this list is having 7 good qualities. Do I have faith in the awakening of the Buddha? Am I conscientious about any bad conduct by way of body, speech, and mind? This is the conscience. It's called hiri. Sometimes it's called moral shame, but it's a nice translation to think of it as having a well-developed conscience or being conscientious. A person who's got a conscientious personality would be coming to like doing whatever they have a duty to do. They would conscientiously complete what they should do, not leave things half done, not to be lazy, not cutting corners. The third of these 7 good qualities is, it's translated here as being prudent. That's called otapa, which is sometimes translated as moral fear. Again, prudence is kind of a nice, clear quality, and that's to be able to look ahead and be aware of the consequences of what we do. And then the fourth point on this quality is to be learned, to hear the teachings that are good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end, or to read these teachings that are meaningful, describing the spiritual practice, having learned them, remembering them, keep them in mind. Having learned them, memorize the teachings that you've learned, reinforce them by recitation, mentally reflect about them and comprehend them. So that's the fourth point. And I have to say that I know that we live in an age of distraction because of media. And I've heard that a lot of people find that they waste time with the internet. Whereas in the olden days, when we didn't have the internet, we used to read books and magazines. And maybe it was much easier to make choices about what kinds of information we're paying attention to, what we're taking an interest in, and what we're learning. So I think part of this reflection is, do I have the right priorities in how I spend my time when I'm either consuming information or reflecting and thinking about information? Am I spending it on the Dhamma, the things that are really important and valuable? Or am I spending my time learning and thinking and puzzling about things that are actually trivial? The next point on this, this is a list within a list, is having energy, having the right effort, giving up unskillful qualities, giving up unskillful, embracing the skillful, being vigorous, not slacking off, have the energy to get started. And once you get started, keep going in the right direction and don't give up. That's the right energy. Now, that energy is part of bhavana, it's part of the mental development, part of the meditation, part of the path. And it is one very important kind of reflection. It's part of mindfulness, but seeing our internal state of mind, whatever the mood is, the state of mind, or the preoccupation of the mind, and having that evaluation whether we're in a wholesome, onward-leading, beneficial state of mind that's supportive to our spiritual goals, or whether we have slipped into a state of mind that's going in the opposite direction. If your mind is filled with thoughts that are hurting you, you don't have to hurt yourself by holding on to those kind of thoughts. You can simply dismiss the thoughts that are damaging to you. It's just like if someone offers you some poison at the table when you go to the meal, you don't have to take the poison. So don't take poison into your mind. That's part of right energy, is being able to recognize what's medicine and what's poison, and then having recognized it, exert the energy to choose what's a good medicine and to stay with that. Next point on this list is to be mindful, having mindfulness and alertness. And then the last point is to be wise, which is specifically described by Ananda as having wisdom about the arising and passing away, which is noble, penetrative, and leads to the end of suffering. So he's pointing to wisdom about impermanence. So, which leads to wisdom about non-self, because if you can see the arising and passing away of phenomenon, you can see the selfless quality of phenomenon. And so then, if I'm doing an evaluation of myself before taking rest in the evening, I may find if there was any disturbance that came up for me during the day, where was my wisdom at that point? Was I taking something that was impermanent and grasping it as if it were permanent? Or if I say that I had a successful day and my spiritual practice was not disturbed during this day, that different challenges or events or poisons, might have been available during the day, but I was not drawn to any of them. And instead, I find my mind was drawn to the wholesome, that my mind was drawn to peace, drawn to tranquility, and so forth. Then I might do an assessment, say, well, could I see that there was some wisdom coming into play? Can I recall any time in the day that something came along and I was actually able to see, oh, that's impermanent. Oh, that's not mine. Not myself, not mine. And then, so having that balanced kind of check-in with ourselves, not just to see the things, see our failures and the shortcomings and to beat ourselves up about the shortcomings, but also to see whatever successes that we had, and to really acknowledge and put a kind of like a spotlight, saying, yes, this worked for me. And then by acknowledging it, that strengthens it and then creates the possibility of attempting to do the same thing again and again, to do the same thing tomorrow. And then the last, so those are the seven dhammas. I'm going to read the list again. Faith, being conscientious, being prudent, being learned, arousing energy, being mindful, and being wise. And then the last point on this list is the four jhanas are developing samma samadhi, or whatever is the highest amount of samadhi that you've been able to develop in this lifetime. Are you able to go there very regularly? Or is it that, you had some samadhi a couple of years ago when you went to a really great meditation retreat and now you're very far away from samadhi? And if so, can you live the life in a way that is setting up your body and mind in order to be capable of getting either samma samadhi, good concentration, or good access concentration, or at least good vipassana practice, having a successful meditation. Ananda, when he gave this teaching, he said if you could just get these 6 points and the sub-points adding up to 12 points, if you could just get all of those practices properly developed, then you would not have to worry about whether or not you shall have your noble attainments and gain stream entry, the fruit of being a once returner, a non-returner, or an arahant. These noble attainments will take care of themselves if you take care of the practice. So you take care of the Dhamma, and then the Dhamma takes care of your awakening. He gives the metaphor of the hen, the smart, competent hen who does not need to worry about whether her eggs will hatch. She just does her duty and sits on the eggs and keeps them warm and takes care of them and protects them. And then the eggs hatch by themselves. So just the same way, if we keep the factors of our training alive, if we are sincere, if we don't lose hope or slack off or cut corners. Or if we see that there's for some people, it could be that some part of the Dhamma you were able to really catch hold of, and you did catch hold of that, and you did practice and develop that, and you got some gains from what you were able to understand and to internalize and develop and practice with, but you didn't really become well-rounded in the practice. You only have part of it, but you don't really have some other parts. So if you have a great sila, but you don't have very much faith, you ought to think about that and try to understand, what's blocking you, what's preventing you, and try to solve that problem. Or if you any part of it, any part of the program that is not very well developed, you might try developing it. So with those, that simple suggestion, it's number 53 in the middle length discourses. So you can look it up later and type up your own list or read that sutta on a regular basis for a while, as long as you need to, maybe for 1 week or 2 weeks. Or they say that my dentist told me that he tells the patient that they just need to do a good job of brushing and flossing for 14 days. And that if they do it really conscientiously for 14 days, then they have the beginning of a habit. So at least try to be really conscientious and to see if you can keep it all together for 14 days. And or if there's something that you can't keep up for 14 days, then focus on that until you're able to get a hold of it. And so that's my suggestion. And now I'm going to open for discussion.